Hello and welcome to the MG EVs podcast, streaming live on Monday, the 18th of October, 2021. We're here to talk about all the MG electric vehicles, though tonight we're focusing on the Marvel R and the 2022 MG5 refresh, and we're hoping to inform and entertain you for about an hour or so. I'm Stuart Whitman, username Stuart46 on the forum, and joining us this week are MG EV owners John Griffiths from Oslo in Norway.
Hi, John G on the forum.
And then we've got Charlotte and Gareth joining us for the first time this evening from East Ardsley.
Hi, Electric Berry on the forum.
And I'm Charlotte Tice on the forum.
And from North Yorkshire, we have Innovations Development Manager at the Chorley Group, Miles Roberts.
Miles per kilowatt hour on the forum.
If you're watching live, thank you for joining us, and please click the like button and join in on the discussion on the chat window. If you're watching later, thank you for choosing to watch this video, and please subscribe to get a notification when we go live next time. In tonight's podcast, we're chatting about the MG Marvel R and the 2022 MG refresh, as we said earlier. But first, please welcome Charlotte and Gareth to the podcast. So Charlotte and Gareth, tell us about your two MG EVs, please.
So I have a MG5. It's my first EV, and I got that back in January. So I moved from just having a Seat Leon, and I just went straight to an MG5. Bought it, never even driven one. I'd just seen a few YouTube videos, and to me it was a no-brainer in terms of price per sort of month and how many miles I'd get. Battery size was great, and when I bought it, I've just never looked back really.
And then that's when I got jealous, and I got the I got the ZS exclusive. Absolutely love it. For me, that's sort of a dream car. So I've always driven Vauxhall Corsas in the past. I started with a 52 plate, little old one, and then I bought a 65 plate when I graduated uni. So this is my next treat to myself. Absolutely love it. Wouldn't look back. And personally, I've always said that my dream car would be a Range Rover. And for me, it sounds really silly because of the difference in the price range. But the MG ZS does all of that for me. The interior, the way I feel driving it, absolutely love it.
Brilliant. Okay, and obviously you're both saving money as well, I would imagine, from your previous cars as well.
A lot of money, yes.
So are you both, has one of you got a red one?
No.
I have you've got matching.
I've got a white one. Charlotte's got a black one.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're enjoying them.
Yeah.
How long have you had them, did you say?
So I've had mine since January.
And I've had mine since the end of May, so not as long.
So yeah, Charlotte, you'll be coming into the winter months and the cooler miles and the loss of battery and everything else. Well, good luck with that. So okay, right. So thank you very much for that. Well, what we're going to start with this evening is talking about the Marvel R, and our regular podder, John in Norway, is going to take over now and tell you all about it. So over to you, John.
Okay, Stuart in the background is going to put up some slide pictures that I've put together, and I can talk through what we've got here. The Marvel R officially went on sale in Norway at the beginning of October, and demo cars are supposed to be available at the end of this month, but I haven't been able to get any information on when the first customer cars will be delivered, so that's at the moment work in progress. In Norway, MG is advertising three models. There's the Comfort, the Luxury, and the Performance. The Performance version is the top of the line with all-wheel drive, 3 motors, 2 for the rear and 1 for the front. And the 0 to 100 and 0 to 62 miles an hour, which will appeal to Miles, is in a very respectable 4.9 seconds. Strangely enough, although the brochure you can download from MG Europe's website lists 3 models, it appears that not all countries are showing prices for the Comfort version, and I'll come into possibly why they've done that a bit later. Pricing in Norway starts at 350,000 Norwegian krone for the Comfort version, which is just over £30,000 when we convert it. The Luxury version is 389,000 krone, or £33,500, and the range topper, the Luxury, is priced at 428,000 Norwegian krone, which is £37,000. As for what you get for your money, I'll talk about that in a moment and when we put picture number 2 up. But color range is somewhat limited with only 4 colors on offer. The standard interior color is black, and from what I understand, grey and brown are optional on the luxury and performance versions. Comfort has imitation leather, while luxury and performance have part nappa leather. And on the performance version, you get the ventilated seats as standard. I was able to sit in a demo model of the luxury version a few weeks ago, and I was very impressed with the fit and finish. We talked about this before on a previous podcast. It's a huge step up in quality from the ZS before the facelift and also the HS. So certainly quality here is, you can't really knock it. The central screen is huge, but it's also quite steeply raked. So if you have the sunroof blind rolled back, it could be affected by glare through the sunroof. The infotainment system I was impressed with. It's got a lot of useful options. It looked to me as if MG had taken a good look at other systems and understood copying functionality is good for the end user. Setting the level of charge, for example, looks very similar to what you see in a Tesla. Currently, there's no date when the Marvel R will be available in the UK. So price-wise, if we take the German price for the luxury version and convert to pounds, you'd probably be looking at a price of around about £39,000. In Norway, the luxury version costs £33,500, and it's cheaper here than in Germany, as in Norway, there's no VAT at the moment when you buy a fully electric vehicle. So if we take a look at the picture 2, the slide with the comparison, you'll see what you get for your money. To be honest, if you can live without all-wheel drive, and if the number of two-wheel drive Volkswagen ID4s and Skoda Enyaqs on the roads here is anything to go by, then the luxury and comfort versions of the Marvel are the ones to look at. In fact, the comfort model is a really interesting proposition, especially when you compare it to the recently launched ZS facelifted long-range version. With a starting price of just over £30,000 for the comfort version, this is only £1,500 more than the facelifted luxury ZS long range, which in Norway starts at £28,500. In my opinion, for an extra £1,500, you get an awful lot of car with the Marvel R Comfort, but this assumes you can live with 251 miles of range versus 275 miles of WLTP range with the long range. With the Marvel R two-wheel drive, you also get 150-litre frunk under the bonnet, which somewhat compensates for what I think is a bit of a poor trunk or boot capacity of only 367 litres. So when you look at the standard equipment the Marvel Comfort comes with, this may well be the reason this model is not being advertised on a number of the MG European websites. I think, as you'll hear a bit later, I think it's going to steal sales from the ZS EV. If you want more toys, then you can pay an extra £2 and a bit grand GB for the luxury version. And if you add another £4 grand, you're up to the performance model. I have to say, I think it's too big a price jump for the extras the performance includes. If you can live without all-wheel drive, then the luxury makes a lot more sense, and you stay within the magic 250 miles WLTP range window. Personally, I think the performance should have been priced in Norway at around about £35,500, and the ventilated seats put on the options list. I think the performance could also have included 20-inch wheels to differentiate it externally from the luxury version. The cars look exactly the same. One feature worth pointing out is that all versions of the Marvel R will support over-the-air updates, something I understand the ZS, even the facelifted one, doesn't support, but it will come in the future. I don't know. So good level of standard kit. And you probably, when you see this slide, you'll see the reason why the Comfort is probably such a compelling option without going bananas and going up the scale for the luxury version, which does give you some nice stuff, but maybe that is the sweet spot if you want something like the real-time navigation, and it's also got Amazon streaming music as well as ambient lighting. So there's some nice goodies in there for the couple of £1,000 extra you're going to pay. So how does the Marvel R stack up against the competition? In this picture, I've tried to compare the Marvel R with the Volkswagen ID4, the 77 kilowatt version. The 62 kilowatt version is not sold in Norway, and the 50 something doesn't have the range. And I've also included the Skoda Enyaq, which in Norway is sold with a 62 kilowatt hour battery, which is probably the one that you can compare more one-to-one in terms of range with the Marvel R. Here we've got the luxury version, which is with a 70 kilowatt battery pack. You can also possibly, if you want to include others, there's the Polestar 2 with a standard range single motor. If an SUV is not really your way of going, it's jacked up, so it's a sort of crossover-y type of vehicle. And the other would have been the Volvo XC40 recharged single motor, but that is just horrendously expensive, and a typical Volvo, you pay through the nose for everything that's got to be added to it. Surprisingly, in Norway, for some inexplicable reason, the 77 kilowatt battery version of the ID4 costs more than in the Enyaq 60 with a 62 kilowatt battery. I don't know why. I need to perhaps check my numbers, but the price of the 62 kilowatt Skoda in the UK is, I think, £32,000 before you start pumping it up with extras. So what I've done here for both the Skoda and the Volkswagen is added in a number of extras to try to bring us up to something that's comparable in terms of the specs. So a little over £37,000 will give you an ID4, not really cut down, but it does lack the sunroof and electric seats. In the UK, the ID4 with a 77 kilowatt hour battery is called Family and costs £45,500. It's actually well equipped and does include a standard panoramic roof, LED matrix headlights, but again, electric seats are an option. The Enyaq in the UK at £37,000 is a bit of a surprise, because that was really well equipped when I spec'd it. It had electric seats and sunroof, and in fact, it was better equipped than my Norwegian example, and more surprisingly cheaper, even though the price in the UK included VAT. Without VAT, this car would have cost £31,000 in the UK, which is 358,000 NOK in Norway, and that would have made it about 30,000 kroner more, say £2,500 more expensive than the Marvel R Luxury. The WLTP numbers are telling, as it looks like the Marvel R is not very efficient. The ID4 has a battery that is 10% bigger than the Marvel R, but has a WLTP range that is 29% greater. Even the Enyaq, with an 11% smaller battery than the Marvel R, has a WLTP range of 258 miles versus 251 for the Marvel R Luxury, or the two-wheel drive versions. All three cars are similar in size, and in fact, the length and the wheelbase of the Marvel R are bigger than the Enyaq and the ID4. But actually, it's a bit surprising, because inside the ID4 and the Enyaq have more interior space. I don't know why, but I've sat in all three of them, the Marvel R and the Enyaq and the ID4, and it's definitely bigger. And obviously, the rear trunk capacity in the Marvel R is only 367 litres, which is way behind the 543 and 585 litres the ID4 and the Enyaq respectively offer. Yes, you've got 150 litre in the front, which helps. If you go for the all-wheel drive version of the Marvel R, there is no front. Charging speed, it's also something that owners in Norway are starting to really understand. I haven't got an official number for the Marvel R, but I'm guessing the max effect will be around 90 kilowatt. The ID4 with a 77 kilowatt battery has a max speed of 125 kilowatts, while the ENIAC with a smaller battery supports up to 100. However, that being said, the time to charge from say 5% to 80 is for many as equally important as the charging effect. So the Marvel R is supposed to take 43 minutes to charge from 5 to 80%, adding 52.5 kilowatt hours, while the ID4 takes 38 minutes, adds 58 kilowatts, and the ENIAC takes 30 minutes, adding 46. So there's not a big deal there really, but that will obviously change depending on how cold it is and what the temperature of the battery is. So, briefly, what's my conclusion? Well, firstly, let's look at the Marvel R was on sale in the UK with the luxury version, and it was priced at a guesstimate of £39,000. Surprisingly, this would make the ENIAC IV60 £2,000 cheaper. And I'm not talking about a cut down, poorly equipped version either. It had most of the stuff included. If you moved up to the IV80 with 330 miles of WLTP range, it would be around about £5,000 more than the luxury Marvel R, while the ID4 family version will be approximately £6,000 more expensive. So here, if you want more range, then you're paying for it by having to buy the bigger battery. When the ID4 arrives in the UK with a 62 kilowatt hour battery, I'm assuming it would also quite likely undercut this Marvel R luxury guesstimated UK price. So if MG UK makes the same comparisons, £39,000 for the luxury version in the UK looks rather high, too high in my opinion. As for us here in Norway, it's a slightly different story. The ID4 with the big battery will cost you an extra £3,500 compared to the luxury Model R. But, and this is a big but, you'll get nearly 30% more range, 320 versus 251 miles, a huge boot and more interior space. Yes, you don't get all the toys the Marvel R has, but come sale time in 3 years, I think the lack of range may come back to haunt you. By that, I mean depreciation will probably be much higher than the ID4 and the ENIAC, and it could well eat up a lot of the upfront extra cost of purchase of either of those two cars. To be frank, I'm also a bit concerned that the Marvel R is not a typical car for a family with a couple of growing kids. Even though the Marvel R, as I said, is bigger, at least on paper, this isn't the case when you sit in it. Sit in either the ID4 or the ENIAC. Interior space in these cars is definitely more generous when compared to the Marvel R. And as mentioned already, the boot size in the Marvel R is frankly a real letdown. However, as I said in my introduction, the Marvel R Comfort for £1,500 extra is so well equipped, I believe it will steal sales from the MG ZS long range. Personally, I would choose the Marvel R Comfort over the luxury MG ZS long range, just because I think it's a more modern looking car, it's a bigger car, and it's got a lot of tech included that unfortunately the ZS doesn't have. The standard equipment on the Comfort model, as we saw in the version comparison, is pretty generous. Heat pump, sunroof, LED lights, powered tailgate, electric seats with memory and 2-zone climate control are all standard. Plus, all the versions have the complete MG Pilot range of warning and alert features. And also don't forget the 7-year warranty now, of course. So just over £30,000 or 350,000 kroner in Norway, I'm sure the Comfort Marvel R will be attracted to buyers wanting a nicely styled SUV rather than a crossover. For example, the Hyundai Kuna Premium in Norway is only £1,500 cheaper than the luxury Marvel R. But again, you've got the range difference, which for some, as I'll say, is unfortunately it's the range that is the car's biggest Achilles heel, followed by the lack of boot space. Yes, a lot of toys are included as standard, but I'm not fully convinced it's a good enough counter argument. If the WLTP range had been 280 miles, 450 kilometer, at the current price for the two-wheel drive versions, I think range fears would have been eliminated and the car would have appealed to a far wider audience. So the bottom line is, if you need an electric car with a minimum of 280 miles or 450 kilometers of WLTP, then sadly, the Marvel R is probably not for you. If you can live with 251 miles of WLTP range and the lack of boot space, then for us here in Norway, the Marvel R in comfort or luxury versions are definitely competitively priced. As for the all-wheel drive luxury with a WLTP range of 231 miles or 370 kilometers, I think this is not, the range is too short, too small. And if a larger battery with the extra range, it would have pushed buyers towards, with a larger battery, then yes, if you haven't got it, then you're going to push people towards the VW ID4 GTX all-wheel drive, or the Skoda Enyaq 80 all-wheel drive, even though the extra cost is probably around £6,000 to £7,000. What you're paying for, of course, is battery, extra battery. So at the end of the day, it'll be interesting to see how it fares. And if the price is right, then obviously people will buy it. But I just feel that at the moment, range is something that a lot of people are focusing on. And I think people would choose range over toys. And ventilated seats are nice to have, but if you've got to pay 1,500 quid to get them, then I'd prefer personally to put that money towards a better battery or a larger battery. So that's I hope not bad news for people, but trying to be as objective as possible when doing the comparison like this.
Any idea of the initial take-up of the sales in Norway then, John?
No, I don't. It's been, you've been able to go in and put your name down for one, but until the prices were confirmed, I don't know. I tried to get in touch with the guy who's my dealer contact today, but I couldn't get hold of him, just to find out when the cars will be available for actually delivery. But I think that for the extra money, and perhaps the Enyaq 62 kilowatt is more appealing for, as I said, for people with a growing family due to the size of the boot, and the range is about the same. But if you can go the extra mile and get the larger battery, then you in a sense quids in. So I think it can steal sales from the ZS, definitely, because it's a really nice looking car and high quality. And it may appeal to people who are, for example, not downsizing, that's the wrong thing to say, but if you've got no children to hump around, or you've only got one child to carry about, then perhaps the price advantage of the Marvel R would work for you. But if you've got a growing family, you've got a dog, all the things that go with that in that territory, then I think its size and range is going to be a bit of a turn off, and people will stamp up the extra cash to pay for the larger batteries of both the Enyaq and the ID4.
Yeah, I think as well with the interview a couple of weeks ago that Miles did with I can't remember the guy's name there, but the guy.
Piganyakis.
That's the one. You can, easy for you to say. But yeah, going back, I felt that was quite a realistic conversation where he said about, the pricing of the cars. Once you start going into that over 40k or towards the 40k, people are looking elsewhere, aren't they?
Yeah, I think for what we've seen, obviously with MG in the UK, is that they've sold, and I'm sure that Charlotte, etc., can back me up on this, is that the reason you buy the car is because it's good value. You're buying the car because it's cheaper than buying a smaller car from another manufacturer. So a Vauxhall Corsa electric. Charlotte, you said you had Corsas before, but they're like 27, 28 grand for an electric Corsa. Well, for a few grand less, you can get an SUV, a ZS, and it seems like a not nicer car all over. So that's where MG's maximise its sales in the UK. And I've spoken to both Guy and also William Wong, who's the MD of MG UK, And the general opinion of them is that at the moment, the Marvel R is not a product that would sell in volume in the UK. At the moment, they don't make the Marvel R in a right-hand drive format. So the cost of effectively designing everything to swap it all over to make it right-hand drive, to manufacture it in a quantity that would make sense for that to happen. You know, you'd have to be realistically committing to about 5,000 cars. And if you look at the HS sales in the UK, yeah, the HS isn't selling badly, but that's, you know, a very, very competitively priced SUV at even, you know, the top of the range plug-in hybrid, sort of £30,000. So if this electric vehicle comes out, and it's basically the same sort of size as the HS, similar sort of level of quality inside, maybe some few updates cosmetically, but it's space-wise, it's very similar. And then you're looking at potentially in the UK, the entry level would be, if they just slap the VAT on the Norwegian price, you'd be looking at £36,000, which then wouldn't qualify for the government plug-in car grant. So there you've got then a car which is potentially £10,000 or more higher than the ZS, which makes it a big difference to in Norway, where John's saying, you know, £1,500 between the cars. Over here, we're looking at, you know, potentially sort of £10,000 almost between the transaction price for the cars. And then, you know, if you wanted to go higher up the range, you're looking at sort of probably including the VAT, knocking on the door towards £45,000-50,000 for the performance model, which, yes, it's got good performance, but as Guy said in the interview a couple of weeks ago, a lot of people, when they start spending that sort of money, will say, you know, well, for £45,000, I could get a Tesla Model 3, I could get a Audi Q4 e-tron, I could get this, you know, maybe a Mustang Mach-E, or, you know, a used I-Pace. You know, there's quite a lot of options around at that sort of price point. And I think that quite canny decision really from MG UK to say, look, you know, we'll see how the sales go in Europe. Obviously, they don't have the cost of migrating the dashboard because everything's left-hand drive already. Let's see how that car sells there, particularly in the Norwegian market, where there is a more affluent user base who can, you know, we can test the market with them. If it sells in droves, then we'll consider bringing it across to the UK, possibly with a facelifted version. You know, and China seems to do facelifts about every 2 to 3 years, as we've seen with the ZS EV, as we've seen with the MG5. The Marvel R has been out for over a year in China, so probably by the end of next year, it's probably going to get facelifted again. At which point they might seem to, you know, maybe make it right-hand drive at that stage then. But I think with the current model, it's probably the right decision to not bring it to the UK at the moment, because I think that if it was going to be £40,000, I don't think we would sell enough to justify the profits, you know, to make it worthwhile. Having said that, if someone gave me one for free, I'd love it. I think it looks a fantastic car. I think it looks great. But that's me saying, you know, if someone gave me a car, not would I spend £40,000 of my own money, which I don't have.
It'll be interesting to see how it goes in Norway, because as I gave that comparison, you can buy a Hyundai Kona Premium, and it'll only be £1,500 more to go up to the first level of the Marvel R. And
yeah, I mean, the Kona's a small car as well.
Yeah. So, you know, that's
almost as small a boot as the Marvel R.
Correct. Yes. So for some people, I don't know whether or not it's going to carve a niche. In Norway, they're only going to sell the long range version of the ZS. So that's why it shocked me a bit to see that for not a lot of money extra, I could get a modern, you know, really up to date Marvel R with all the goodies, and, you know, with over the air updates that you're never going to get out of the ZS. So that was a bit of a shock, because Norway's not going to bring in the smaller battery version of the ZS. They're just going for the long range version. So it's possible here that they'll carve out a new niche for those that don't want to spend all the extra cash to go up the ladder to an ID4 or the ENIAC. And you grab people who've come out of, for example, a corner or what Stuart's driving, you know, and they say, oh, I'd like to now go up market, not to a crossover, but to a proper SUV, and price-wise it's there. So it's quite possible it can carve out a bit of a niche for itself, assuming that this price stays where it is, because even the base model is very well equipped. You're not missing very much by going up to the so-called luxury version, yeah? So it's got the most of what you need on board. So it'd be interesting to see once it starts to sell, whether it cannibalizes sales from the ZS, which personally I think it will, and if they start to steal sales from some of the other people when they see they're getting a much bigger car for not a lot of extra money.
My perspective, being a ZS owner, I was on the fence of whether I would go for the longer range, bigger battery ZS when that's released, or whether I'd wait for the Marvel R. But just looking at it on the side, like, we're planning to have kids, we've got a dog that goes in the boot, and it's just not going to be viable for us just based on size, let alone the battery size. So I'll probably stick with the ZS and go for the 70 kilowatt hour battery for that one.
Yeah, if you got one with a frunk, you could put the dog in the frunk if you've got a small enough dog. So maybe
you see, the two-wheel drive gets this 150 litre front, which is quite big. I haven't seen it because the car they had over here that they paraded around the showrooms was a four-wheel drive version with no front. But I don't know, it's a competitive market at the moment, so maybe your summary, Miles, makes sense of you go with what you've got rather than try and push something onto the market that is price-wise at the wrong end of the scale. Yeah.
It's a kind of, it's like a £5,000 kind of zone, isn't there? That once you start going above 35 to 40, I don't know, there's just the competition comes into play, doesn't it?
I think it's a bit of a weird decision here that they stopped, or they've pulled the existing ZS with the 250, 16 kilometers of range off the market, and now you've got quite a big up. Got to pay out quite a lot more money to go from, I think it was 275,000 krona to 70,000 krona for the smaller battery, and then now up at 330,000. So it's a big jump, and if you don't need that range, then it's Hobson's choice. You can only have it in one color, and it's black. So that's why the market here will be a little bit different. And it may well be that, as I said, some of the countries are not Sweden, Denmark, and Germany's showing the cheapest version of the Marvel R, but it's not listed on the Danish or the Swedish or the Dutch website as being available for sale, the cheaper version, which gives me the feeling that they see the pricing of it too close to the ZS. And therefore, by removing the cheapest version, you increase the gap. Yeah. No, but as we say always, time will tell. But I hope anybody's watching and people watch this podcast later that the information is useful. I'm not trying to knock the car. It's really, really quality-wise. It's a up from the HS. It's definitely getting there. Really very impressive. But at the end of the day, your overall needs are really what decides why you buy what you need your car for. So and I think it's a little bit, it lacks in some places, particularly range and boot size.
Yeah. Okay. Looking at the comments, there's a few people sort of mentioning about how the looks of the Marvel R seems to be like the attraction, doesn't it? However, it's the price as well, isn't it? I guess it's just, at the end of the day, it's always going to be down to price, isn't it? And just having a look at some of the comments as well, if anybody is asking any questions. We've got somebody, is it someone said earlier about they're putting 30, yeah, so Jake Newis is putting 30 grand in his pocket and going to Norway to buy one. Excuse me, I've got a dog demanding to get in his bed, so I'm going to mute for a little while. Over to you, Miles. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, I say the situation with the pricing in Norway with the VAT is someone's made a comment that says, is the new centre-left government in Norway going to reinstall VAT on electric cars? Is there any news about
What's being talked about, or what we do in this weird place, is that we have a budget, and that's put forward by the existing government, even though they've lost the election. Okay.
Oh, right, okay.
So it'd be like Boris putting a budget together, and the other mob coming in and saying, well, we don't accept this. So what happens is now they've got to go and vote on it and change it all around. But the idea now that's being proposed is that any car over £52,000 would attract VAT on the amount above that at 25%. So it's not going to hurt.
It's like a stamp duty then, really, isn't it, on expensive stuff?
Yeah, so it's just it's getting at people who are buying Porsche Taycans and Audi e-trons and EQC Mercedes. So whether it will have the same effect as it did in the UK, that those very close to that borderline or over it will reduce prices when they cut the grant in the UK. We'll wait and see. But
well, that's the thing. We've got a budget on the 27th of November, and there's talk that the plug-in car grant of £2,500 may be dropped or cut significantly.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So that means that obviously MG is not releasing its pricing in the UK till the 1st of November. I think that's probably part of the reason, because they don't want to be caught on the hop thinking, oh, let's price our car at X, assuming it gets the grant. And then, let's cut it fine just so we can hit that 35,000 if it happens to be on the top spec. And then obviously the grant gets changed in any car below 30 grand or whatever. It doesn't mean that none of them apply. So I think they're just sort of waiting to see what happens there. It's grants are great from a consumer point of view in one way, but they're also terrible because it falsely means that prices get manipulated. For example, the Vauxhall Vivaro electric combi that I've been driving for the last couple of weeks, because it was one of the cars we had on demonstration. There's a 9-seat version of the combo, which is 34,995. So it's £5 less than the limit. So it's 32.5 grand after the government grant. And that's got steel wheels, metal panels in the back with no finishing. It's basically a van with seats nailed into it. But then if you go for the next spec up, which gets panoramic roof, finished off door cards, all panoramic, everything finished off nicely, leather seats, alloy wheels, etc. It's £49,000. So you've got this sort of 17 grand price difference between two specifications of effectively the same vehicle, the same drivetrain, and one that they've cut everything out of, which is the taxi that I'm driving at the moment, and the luxury VIP limo that's the other end, and there's no in between, because on the one hand they go, okay, well, if we're going to try and cut the grant, let's try and make it so it hits everything, and this is the point where you've got to use the key in the ignition. They've cut that off. It's not got keyless entry and keyless ignition. So you've got this electric van that you've got to put the key in the ignition and twist, or pay £200 upgrade fee to get keyless entry. And they've cut it right down to the bare bones. But then the alternative is, I say, 17 grand difference. So there's quite a lot of fluctuation caused by grants and certainly when they come in at certain levels. And it can make it so that, for example, certain models of cars like the Hyundai Ioniq 5, they've got one model that sits under the £35,000 limit, and then the rest of them are all above. And so there ends up being, again, an artificial, say, £4,000 jump between the entry level and the next specification. So yeah, grants change quite a bit, and it's whether it's more hassle than it's worth in some ways having a grant. In some ways, it'd be more transparent pricing if it wasn't. I guess we'll find out in a week or so in the UK as to whether that's going to continue. But it's it does make a difference. £2,500. I've got a taxi company that's looking at buying 5 MG5s. So obviously, if they're 5 lots of 2.5 grand is going to make a big difference to them. 12.5 grand is going to make a difference. So it's it does have an effect, and it could mean that something that's affordable or not. So those of us that have got our MG5 long ranges or got our ZS EVs in the last couple of weeks or months or year in the last year, and we've benefited from those grants, great, because if they do drop the grant, I suspect that Kazoo will be even offering even more for our cars to buy them off us.
Right.
Residual prices will go back up because obviously the competition is going to be that much more. If your new ZS EV entry level starts at £30,000 with no government grant, versus we were doing the exclusive for 23 back in this time last year. So if the price difference is going to be so huge, I think that residual prices will go up as a result. So anyway, I suppose we ought to talk about the MG5, should we?
We should, shouldn't we? Otherwise, we'll be running out of time. So you're going to let us know about what we're going to be seeing in 2022 then? Yeah,
so the MG5 has been unveiled for Europe with a sexy new face. I cringe myself saying that, sorry. With a new design and with a nip and tuck, and most significantly, I think, is actually the interior looks quite spectacularly different.
It does, doesn't it?
So it's effectively the same car as we currently have on the long range. So in terms of range and the running gear and things, and it's got the MG Pro Pilot system on there. So in terms of that sort of side of things, it's identical. It's just that it also now comes with the iSmart, which is obviously announced with the ZS EV. We talked about that last week. So your connectivity system where you've got an app and you can preheat and pre-cool and check where your car is and look at your driving history and all this sort of stuff. So all that's in the app now. And it's also got LED lights front and rear, which is welcome.
Very much so. They're awful, aren't they? The fiber lights.
In fact, yeah, the lights on it look particularly nice actually as well. They've got apparently 40 different LEDs in there, which give you a LED curtain effect, which is European speak for I don't know. Yeah, and but the interior looks quite nice. It looks a bit more like the Marvel R, and a bit more like, well, it looks to me it actually looks nicer than the new ZS EV facelift. It looks very premium. It's got this sort of hidden air vents going across the dashboard. It's got this sort of blue line that follows around and looks very nice. And it's overall a really nice looking interior. It's got the MG5 seats are very comfortable. That's one thing. I mean, Stu, you've tried it, Gareth as well. The MG5 seats I think are more comfy than the ZS EV seats. And in fact, on the MG5 European thing, the same, they've got an extra 20 millimeters of, so it's got 0G seats. So it's got 20 millimeters of comfort foam in them, which if that explains what they're like in the UK, because they never gave us that fact when we were selling in the UK. But if that explains why it's like it is in the UK, then that explains why they're comfy seats. I think the interior looks nice. I don't think we're going to get that light grey interior in the UK when the model finally comes, which is a shame because I quite like a light interior. I know it's not practical. I know, having kids and everything like that, it shows up all the marks. But I get quite claustrophobic in really dark interiors. And a lot of car interiors for years now have been dark everything. And in fact, Nissan used to do black editions where they had black headlinings and black A-pillars and everything dark. And whilst some people might think it looks sporty, I feel it closes you in. It feels really quite enclosing. And so looking at the MG5 on the European website, and I can see there's nice light grey leather seats. I think that I'd probably go for that. I'd probably choose that, to be fair. I think that there's got the new 7. It's got a 10.25 inch IPS high definition screen, which is sort of angled towards the driver. Which reminds me actually of my center console on my old Alpha 156 I used to have. And sort of the center console was angled towards the driver.
I was thinking Morris Marina.
Showing your age there, Stu.
Yeah, my granddad had one.
I see it's also got touch buttons as well on the bottom, on the underside of the screen, which
Yes,
is
the screen's got it's got actual physical buttons at the bottom of the screen for things like your climate control, and then it's got obviously a touch sensitive screen. The screen there display actually looks like the new ZS EV facelift that I sat in, so the same sort of touch screen, and it has in Europe it has the vehicle to load functionality as well. So in terms of when it's going to come to the UK or whether it's going to come to the UK, obviously it's been, you know, it's been facelifted in China, it's been facelifted here in Europe. However, again, it comes down to us being a right-hand drive market. So our cars are actually made in a completely different factory to the left-hand drive stuff. So the right-hand drive version of the MG5 long range facelift sexy looking car is going to probably be sort of into the third quarter of next year, so sort of July, August sort of time. But you know, it's there's no word of how much different price wise it would be or anything like that. I think that it's a nice physical upgrade, and it looks nice visibly, but there's no increase in range by going for the facelift. So, and in fact, one thing I noticed on the tailgate, it's still got the 4 holes on the tailgate from the Chinese number plate, so it's still going to need a silly trim on there. But overall, I think it's a nice looking facelift, and it shows how MG's interiors are improving. I think that somebody said this to me the other day. Said, you know, if you look at in the 70s, it was the Japanese companies that were trying to break into Europe, and initially they were sort of coming out with quite poor quality copies, and then obviously by the end of the 70s, Toyota, etc., had been accepted, and Nissan, and then in the 80s as well, and then in the 90s it sort of moved on. It was you know, sort of Korean cars, and you know, moving on to, you know, Kia started to come in, and Hyundai and so on started coming in, and by the 2000s they were a lot better cars. And now, you know, you look at a Kia EV6 at £55,000 and think that's okay. So it's, you know, I think that China is basically doing what the Korean markets, what the Japanese market has done, but in a shorter period of time. So, you know, if you look at the MG6 saloon that we had from a few years ago, that's realistically you know, an old Rover design that's been sort of, you know, somebody's scratched out Rover and written Roe or put an MG sticker on there. But I think that really, in terms of, you know, where MG's now, and with the Marvel R, with the new facelift ZS EV, with the facelift MG5, it's just showing their intent that they, you know, they are here to make some quality cars. And I think that, you know, the MG5 estate is a good car to drive. Dynamically, it's very, very good. Good acceleration. I don't know, Stu, Gareth, would you guys want to upgrade?
Do you think it will come with tinted windows like in the video?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. John, did the Marvel R have tinted windows?
It said it's got privacy glass and tinted windows.
Oh, so
hopefully, the ZS EV had tinted windows now in the specs that were on the Norwegian website. But whether it's got the privacy glass, I don't know. But definitely, the Marvel R's got privacy glass from the company.
Well, that's good. If they've actually, if Sake's actually invested in the tint line in the glass factory, because that's something they literally haven't had for years.
They've probably bypassed it. They forgot it was there, like the tint workshop, and they've actually gone round it. And there's these guys in the tint workshop waiting for some cars to put the glass in. They're still there now. So now they've had to facelift the 5 so they can fit the tints in with the stock that they've got. I don't know, but so Gareth, you've got a 5, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got a 5.
So just obviously going on what Miles saying with the facelift. So you got yours about the same sort of time as I did. I got mine the last day of December last year, so I've had it all year.
Mine end of Jan.
Would you consider getting the facelift next year?
I think I would, because obviously mine's a standard range as well. So having that extra, maybe 40, 50, even maybe 60 miles, it means charging maybe once every. For me, I charge once a week, maybe once every 9 days or something. So it might even move to every 2 weeks or more. But I agree with what Miles was saying about the build quality as well. Like, I've had people wince when they say, "Oh, MG's Chinese," and I go, "I know. Come and sit in it then.
Yeah.
Come and feel it. Come and feel it." Like what Miles said about the comfort of the seats. Like, the first thing I said when I sat in the MG5 was, "Whoa, these seats are comfortable," because I was driving a Seat, and I didn't ever think about the comfort of the seats that I was sitting in every day driving to work. And then I sit in the MG5, and that was the first thing that went through my head.
Yeah. I'm yet to finish a journey and get out and think, well, my back hurts or my legs ache. And I must admit, as Miles said, and as you've said as well, and I've probably said it before on the pod as well, you know, I'd come out from a Mercedes and was worried about comfort because I do long journeys and I've yet to suffer. So that's testament to the comfort and obviously the work they put into you know, the quality and everything else. So it's not, you know, it's not like Hyundai were and whoever else it was, Kia years ago. I think even though the MG seems to be the cheaper brand, it isn't lacking quality. It's a cheaper brand with quality, and I think, you know, we can back that up wholeheartedly. Moving on a bit then, so just before we finish, I asked a question on the pod yesterday about why did people buy their MG5s. And Miles, do you get involved in sales yourself?
I mean, as little as I possibly can, but yes, yeah, I do. I do speak to customers a lot, but I don't actually do the dirty paperwork stuff.
So what would you say would be the most popular or the most common reason for buying an MG5?
It's the range for the price. I'm sure it is. I mean, the number of people who've come to me with ZS EVs and upgraded to the MG5 long range because they wanted the extra 100 miles of range. I'd say that probably, yeah, most of the people who've gone for MG5 long range had a ZS EV originally. They like the MG, they just wanted the more range, and for a very reasonable price. You know, when you look at the sort of competition again, you know, with what there's. I mean, I've got to be careful what I say because we've got a Nissan dealership, we've got a Kia dealership, we've got a Hyundai dealership, we've got a Vauxhall dealership.
Yeah.
But they're all really expensive. You know, I mean, the Hyundai Kona is got a great range, but it's, you know, way over 30 grand, and it's a lot smaller car. The Kia e-Niro, nice enough car, bit old feeling inside now. It's a bit long in the tooth as design inside. Certainly no better than either of the MG products. Decent range. Again, you know, sort of 35 grand for the entry level, you know, and you're sort of looking toward now because of the grant thing, you're certainly looking sort of 38 for a decent one. So it's, you know, in terms of, you know, the amount of miles per pound, I think it's unbeatable. And I think that whether it's an estate or not probably doesn't factor into that many people's. From the people we sell to, the fact it's an estate isn't the defining factor. I mean, obviously, if you want an estate, you have to get it because it's the only electric estate.
It's interesting you say that. So the 22 people responded. Did Gareth, as you're on as well? So did you consider, because it was an estate, did you need an estate?
No, it wasn't about it being an estate. It was price per mile. Exactly what Miles said.
Yeah,
Yorkshireman.
Oh, what a surprise.
Yeah. Because we had 22 contributors to the question, and I've sort of sectioned them out into sort of areas of kind of why and you know, the reasons why we sort of went for these cars. Mine was purely financial because of the miles that I do. And if you care to look on the forum, there's some really interesting and quite enlightening responses. So with the practicality side of things, 9 out of the 22, there was no choices. People just wrote as little or as much as they wanted to. And I was quite surprised. So with practicality, space, 9 out of the 22, space was an important factor, whether it be carrying things. And then the estate bit, 8 out of the 22 responded with, they wanted an estate car, I guess for the practical reasons. Range was 7 out of 22 where that was mentioned. And 7 people just wanted to go electric, and it was the route into going electric, I guess, with the affordability. Ironically, with all the hoo-ha with the roof space as well, the roof rack, initially 3 people mentioned that they wanted to put something on the roof, and our good friend Les mentioned that, as you'd expect him to. Les Burrows there. 3 people, practicality levels with children, wanting to put kids in the back, and the same applies to dogs. So 3 people responded with they wanted space for their dogs. The 7-year warranty as well, which was there's only 2 people mentioned that. The biggest amount, which was half of the people that was in the survey, if you like, was down to the running costs, which I think we're all the same, aren't we? The reason why we've pretty much got these is because it's so much cheaper to run, especially in recent times in the last month or so. I know I've saved an absolute fortune. I saw diesel at services, and it was 157 a litre, which came out about £7.50 a gallon. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess for us,
and we got
being in
value for
Leeds-
money, which was 10 out of the 22. And then also 6 people mentioned the affinity scheme. Did you use that, Gareth? Or
No, I didn't. I wouldn't have qualified for it, but I would now. So yeah, I've missed out on that one.
Yeah, it's quite a big factor with quite a few people. 3 people for eco reasons. And then with the driving, the top 2 were comfort and then performance and power, which I think we can all, we mentioned the comfort side of things. People had their test drive and really found the car comfortable and I guess pokey, performance, power. And then 3 people liked the spec and the gadgets, including like the rear USB chargers in the back for the children that they didn't have in the ZS. Is that right?
Yeah, they do on the new one. It's
The new one has 2 in the back, doesn't it?
Does it? Yeah.
USB-C and USB-A. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly the outgoing model apparently only had 1. And then so with the and then the other things were my biggest thing was I don't particularly like the look of the MG5. I think it's a bit of an ugly duckling, but 6 people said that they like the look of it, which just goes to show, doesn't it, how it's in the
Now it's as queer as folk.
Say again.
There's now as queer as folk.
But isn't that a good thing as well, though? Some people, it's just one of those, isn't it?
I think that some people don't want an electric car to look like an electric car. Some people said, quite a lot of people have said about the ZS facelift that they wish it has kept the grille like the old one because they don't want it to look like an electric car.
No, and I'm the same.
Yeah, it's got a face like the Kona now.
Yeah, it looks more futuristic.
Like the Kona or the Nero. Yeah, it's yeah. I think it's
they painted it black or in a contrasting color, but again, that puts the price up. So that might have been a way of differentiating it a little bit.
I've heard the Kona comparison quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The new flap, I'm not sure about on the front either.
It works well. It opens well. It's so I've got a obviously we got the pricing launched on the 1st of November, and I'm going to the press day, which is the 18th of November. No, 11th of November. Sorry, 11th of November. So we're going to get a chance to drive it, but then the cars will be in the showrooms, I think, from the 22nd of November that week. So fairly soon afterwards.
And then we won't be able to get them until the 3rd quarter of 22.
We're talking about the ZS, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
The ZS EV, sorry, yeah. The ZS EV, the pricing's out on the 1st of November, and we should have demonstrated by the end of November, and then the first customer cars from December. But yeah, with the MG5 long range, I've been told it's going to be it's likely to be sort of July onwards next year before we get the facelift version.
Got any time frame on pricing?
For the 5? No.
No.
A lot can change between now and July, and I imagine that obviously we're talking about the grants and all that sort of situation. The same in the EU, it'll cost around £25,000 or £25,000, I think they said, for the MG5, which is sort of similar to where it is now.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like it's going to get a massive price hike. The big thing at the moment really is the cost of batteries. So every kilowatt hour that you add to a battery is typically adding about $200 to the cost price of the vehicle. So if you're going from a 60 to a 70 kilowatt hour battery, you're adding around $2,000 to the cost price, which then obviously increases by the time you've manufactured it and then put it in a car, and then you've added import duties on everything else. So it ends up being sort of around £2,000 extra for 10 kilowatt hours extra of battery. Now, when MG went from the 51 to the 60, from the 52 to the 61 kilowatt hour battery, it went up by £1,500 recommended retail price, which was quite reasonable, really, because you also got the MG pilots and everything else on top. So MG is trying to sort of swallow some of the cost with the bigger batteries, but clearly with the the 70 plus kilowatt hour batteries are still expensive to make. They're still going to add a lot of cost to the vehicle. And the guy said last week that they're going to put the prices up. I've just seen Jeff remind me.
Yeah.
Guy says the prices are going to go up in January anyway, because of the increase they're seeing in their cost prices in terms of transportation and everything. So
Are they doing any models without semiconductors so we can get them quicker?
Yeah.
So one of the things that Guy said, I don't know if he said it on the podcast, but he said it to me off camera, was that MG obviously manufacture a lot of the components themselves because SAIC is a massive corporation, but they are being affected by semiconductor issues as well. But one of the things they're not short of in China is space. So what they're doing is they're building all the cars without certain semiconductors, leaving them big fields near the port, and then when the semiconductors come in, they just got a guy who runs around and just goes click, 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 click down the line, and the car's ready to go. So they're not holding up production. They're still building the shells, they're still building everything. They're just leaving, one ECU unconnected or whatever, and then they've got a guy manically running around a field, chucking them in from a Tupperware box under his arm as he's running around going like this, fitting them into the cars. But that's one of the ways in which they're able to manage the issue better than some of the other manufacturers.
So we'll be getting 2-year-old cars that are all full of
No,
mods.
but they might be, say 2 or 3 months
Yeah.
sat waiting for a semiconductor, but it's better than, it means that the cars, as soon as that semiconductor bit comes in, the car's built and gone.
Yeah.
So it's not
That's
holding up
good.
production massively. So
If, for example, now if you're getting an e-tron here in Norway, you can't, for some strange reason, you can't get it with a tow hook. That's in short supply, right? So that's fitted afterwards, and you got one key instead of two.
yeah, we've had issues with I saw that with the Audi thing with keys. Yeah, the cars only coming with one key.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've seen is that certain specifications of car, because they use, for example, in Nissan, they have two different head units depending which specification you get. One's a bigger screen, one's a smaller screen, and so we're looking at you might be able to get an Ascenta which has an 8-inch screen rather than a end connector which has a 10-inch screen. But so we're having to sort of say to customers, look, do you want to wait 6 months for an end connector, or do you want to drop an inch or two on the screen size and go for a car you can get next month? So it's tough. It's really tough for us managing customers' expectations. One of the benefits of us having MG is that they've managed to keep production going, so we haven't had that many holdups. The fact that we can take an order on the 1st of November for a ZS EV facelift and hopefully get it into the customer's hands during December, January.
Wow, yeah,
is pretty good, compared to a lot of the competitors.
Yeah.
I just the long range facelifted ZS EV here is £28,500. The MG5 did not release the prices yet, but that's supposed to be available first quarter of next year. So the prices for the 5 must be just around the corner. But as I said earlier, the short range or the regional range ZS is not being sold in Norway. They've pulled it. And I think there's slight difference, isn't there, with the if you get the short range, you don't get all the functionality of the app. I thought I saw somewhere it was iApp Lite or something, or MG.
So the way that the way it's working in the UK is we've got 3 specifications. You've got SE, which is the comfort version, I guess, in Norway. And then we've got Trophy, which is your luxury model, and then we've got Trophy Connect. And both SE and Trophy have iSmart Lite. iSmart Lite gives you access to all the stuff you really need. So it's got charging timers, climate control timers, Find My Car, driving history, vehicle health check, all that sort of stuff's iSmart Lite. And then if you go for the Connect version, which is a software update, like a subscription, I guess, you then get Google Maps to car, you get Amazon Music, you get points of interest that are searchable using, I guess, Google Maps type thing, or TomTom, whoever is doing it. So you get a few. Oh, hang on.
I think you've got range prediction as well. If you're on,
here we go. Yeah, so if you go to Trophy Connect, you get real-time traffic, route planning, weather updates, points of interest searches, and access to Amazon Music. So that says if you upgrade to Trophy Connect, so I guess it'll come in as a trophy, and they'll basically a software.
I think they're including a gigabyte of data in Norway. I don't know what's happening once you go over a gigabyte, whether it shuts down or what. But,
yeah, I did pass. Don't know. I don't know if it's. And again, I think they're supposed to do over-the-air updates with the new ZS. We'll see. I just seen a question coming from Jeff saying, will anybody ordering a new ZS facelift before Christmas that cannot be delivered until after the new year expect to pay an increase? I imagine that the ZS EV, given that the pricing is only going to be announced in November, probably will have that price increase already factored into it, as in now. Because effectively the costs are now. You know, the 600% increase in transportation costs that MG's had is now. So when they put the pricing out on 1st of November, I wouldn't expect them to then upgrade it, increase the price in January. I think they'll probably just hold it across. Yeah, and what was the other question you've seen? Oh, yeah, I suppose very pertinent question. Charlotte, you said before, right at the start, you were thinking about, you'd probably look at moving to the ZS EV facelift. I mean, I guess price willing, and is there some sort of time scale for that? Are you thinking, well, I'll keep the car for a couple of years, or is it a case of if it was attractive price wise enough, to do the change next month, would you do it next month?
It's my birthday next month. It'd be a little present to myself, wouldn't it?
Isn't it? Oh, yeah. Very nice.
I bet you Miles has got a deal for you.
I think for myself as well, because I've gone back to hybrid working in the office. I commute about 120 miles round trip for that. And if I'm going to see my family as well, I'm playing with fire if I don't charge whilst I'm near work. So for me, it just stops that range anxiety as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I mean, without this sounding like a sell, if you want to contact me at any point, feel free. I'll give you a decent price. No, I think the
email address there.
yeah. miles.roberts@chorleygroup.co.uk. No, if obviously we haven't had the pricing announced yet for the MG ZS facelift in the UK. I have no idea where it's going to go, and if the government grant changes on the 27th, it could well make a big difference to a lot of people. So at the moment, me and a lot of other dealers are taking a deposit for the idea is that you put your name down, you tell us what colour you'd like. On the 1st of November, when sales open, we'll place that order immediately. If you get the pricing and you go, oh crikey, that's way more than I thought, or can't afford it, or maybe think, oh well, maybe I'll go for the comfort, the SE instead of the trophy, or whatever it is. There's the deposit's refundable. There's no, we're not holding you to it. But one of the things it does allow us to do is obviously plan for stock a bit better. So if we know that we've got 25 orders of people that want the cars as soon as possible, and 10 of those are blue and 3 are black and 4 are red or whatever, then at least we can order in that sort of numbers, rather than order 5 of each and find that we've got loads of the white ones left over, or black ones or whatever it is, so it just helps us with stock management that way. If that's something you're interested in doing, we can just take a £200 credit card payment over the phone and get that ordered for you, subject to full approval, obviously, later on.
That sounds like a live deal here with Charlotte and Mars. But okay, right, we better wrap it up because the time's getting on. Has anybody got anything else to add?
It was I just had a quick one for Miles, if he knows. Is the MG5 facelift, is the motor size going to be the same in terms of power, output, and sort of punchability and things like that?
I have no reason to doubt otherwise. As far as I'm aware, it's a cosmetic upgrade as much as anything else. There's no motor changes, I believe. Now, in Europe, they're given the choice of 2 batteries, effectively the standard range and the long range. I believe in the UK, they'd only go to the long range because that's what the plan is for the UK. I think that, the motor performance 0 to 60 in 7.5, 8 seconds would be about the same, similar sort of power and everything. I think there wouldn't be any, they wouldn't make it slower.
No, that's not what I was asking. I was hoping for more. not that I'm
You don't need any more.
Not that I need it. Not that I'm disappointed at all. But yeah, just obviously the heavier it is as well, with more batteries, the heavier it is, and would that have an effect, sort of thing?
So the battery, they've increased the battery density. So the battery weight between the standard range and the long range is only about 15 kilos different.
Oh, right, okay.
So I mean, after a good weekend, I can weigh 15 kilos more. So it's so it makes no odds really. I've driven both cars and they both drive pretty much identical, to be fair.
Okay.
In terms of last comments that have just come in, so I've just seen someone's commented that Edge Reviews has commented that Fifth Gear is reviewing the new MG ZS EV. The trailer went out for that. So Fifth Gear is relaunching as Fifth Gear Recharged. It's going to be an electric vehicle only show.
Oh wow!
It's going to be shown on Discovery Plus from November, I think, and it's going to be on Quest about a week or 2 after that. I always quite rated Fifth Gear. It's a slightly more sensible car show in terms of actually, they just loaded daft stuff, but it's the more believable side of daft.
Yeah.
And so they've got Rory Reid, who does Auto Trader reviews and of course used to be on Top Gear for a bit, and he's coming back in along with quite a few other Vicky Butler Henderson's still there, the dads. And there's I think they've done away with Tiff Nidello.
Is it Jason Plato there?
Jason Plato's still in it, and is it Shandok, the Formula One driver? It used to be Marisha. They look on their trailer. They shows the MG ZS EV facelift in blue, so it looks like they're testing that in the new show. So they've already driven it. I'll hopefully get my review out before that because I'm driving it before they launch the new series. But I think it'd be good to see, obviously, a mainstream show like Fifth Gear with the MG ZS EV and hopefully in a favourable light.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Let's wrap this up then. So before we go, there's a few things I want to bring to everybody's attention. If you'd like to support us, please consider MGEV's forum premium membership for just £3 a month, and it gives you the premium member badge, the ability to upload a profile banner, the ability to select the MG Red theme, Team Red, a discount code for MGEV's merchandise, a full 10% discount when you use the code, and the knowledge that you're helping support the community and this podcast. And finally, please have a look at our merchandise. Please check it out. And to make it easier, there's a link to the shop on the forum menu. So that's it for the MGEV's podcast this week. My thanks to John Griffiths.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate it.
Sorry, John. Sorry. And Charlotte and Gareth, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for having us.
Thank you.
And Miles Roberts from Chorley Group.
Always a pleasure.
And goodbye from myself. And we will be back with EV's podcast soon. Please click all the likes and subscribes. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much and good night all.